Returning to Health is a podcast sponsored by My Human Coach. When you support us on Patreon, your subscription goes toward coaching scholarships that ensure all humans have access to quality coaching support. Check out our free resources and learn more about ethical health coaching at myhumancoach.com.
Anna, you posted something in that thread that stood out to me, and it was you were talking about the extraction of energy versus the exchange of energy. And you were talking about how in coaching, like you don't even want to charge for coaching. You want to, like, you would just offer that for free if you could. And so Bex and I just had this whole conversation about, this nature of coaching. Bex, is that what I said? Like, I don't know. I'm losing my word. There's so much on my mind right now from our conversation that
I think you're talking about the systems, right? And so coaching exists within these systems that are extractive. And so energy is taken and sent somewhere else. It's sent to investors, it's sent to CEOs, it's sent away from the relationship versus what we're trying to do is something that is a closed loop. It's regenerative. We're able to offer coaching and then, through the business, create an environment that allows us to give of ourselves in a way that we feel good of and feel proud of, but is also sustainable. Did I hit that? Okay.
Yes. So this whole idea of like MHC isn't just about offering coaching that's accessible. It's also about the model that allows us to be very present with our work without this like pressure of it being monetized. Wouldn't that be beautiful if we could just work and live? Like it's a model that literally doesn't exist. So that's what's so different about MHC. And Anna, your comment just sort of like wrapped it up in such a beautiful little summary. Like, yeah, I probably am not demanding my worth because my worth in coaching isn't wrapped up in the monetization of it.
And that's why it's so important for me to keep coming back here, because the messages that I'm getting from the outside world say that coaching is not valued. We just had a town hall in that company that I'm with, and they're moving away from live coaching to digitized or AI coaching. And the leader said that it was because people don't want to be held captive for 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm thinking, he just said that this whole field, this whole group of people that they pay are holding others captive. It's this really subtle message of you're giving something that nobody even really wants. They're not benefiting from it, and a robot's going to do it a whole lot better. And I want to fight against that. That's the message that I want to fight against. And it's really hard. It's hard to keep fighting against that. My husband keeps reminding me, it's doing the right thing. It's speaking up. There might not be any outcome. There might not be any results, but you're still speaking up and speaking out. And that's that. And Christy, that was about what you had posted originally about at what point do you stop pouring into companies or people that just don't care or don't want it? And I guess I'm not there yet on that side. And I'm still have the energy on this side with my human coach to pour into it as well.
I think part of it, Anna, is the rubric is different, right? So when they're making those decisions, they're making those decisions based on a product and how much profit they can extract from their clients. Right. Versus what we care about is outcomes. And when we talked about developing My Human Coach and how are we going to tell if we're successful, and we're like, we're going to need to do it person by person, because statistically, we don't, when a company's like, oh, well, this worked for 95% of people, so we don't need to worry about the 5%. That's a numbers game. To those of us that work directly with the client, that's tens of thousands of people with hopes and dreams and goals and desires. And those of us who do this empathetic work, who understand and the importance of it and value the privilege of guiding people through the journey of creating important change in their lives, we can't think abstractly about it. We see each individual person. And so what you're hearing is essentially, a totally different system than the one that your values and your view of coaching subscribes to.
Yeah, Anna, I just want to say I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry that that's your experience, and I'm not sure how you're able to keep recharging to do both things. And this like nobility in you to fight for, I mean, it ultimately is just fighting for humanity when you're speaking up against these like ideas that people are being held captive because they're having a conversation about what they want. Yeah, I would say most people don't want coaching, but they want what they want. You know, people want what they want, and coaching helps people find, explore, uncover what they want or avenues toward what they want. And so like to hear a message of like this is not valuable and something electronic can regurgitate this in an equally meaningful way is nonsense.
And the other thing is that it occurred to me yesterday, it's the people who benefit from coaching aren't the ones who want to limit the time or the interaction. It's the people who are incentivized to they're doing the coaching for the points. They're not doing it for the coaching whatsoever. So what's happening is the people that are incentivized are being allowed to speak for those who value coaching. And so that's kind of what keeps me going, is because I talk to enough people during the day that really do value it. Like I have made a tiny little difference in somebody's life. So that's another thing that keeps me going too. And just being reminded that my husband said this morning that doing the right thing doesn't always have rewards. But for me, the kind of person that I am, the kind of coach that I am, doing the right thing is the reward. It's not the outcome. It's not a change. It's not acknowledgement. It's okay. I felt a way about it, and I did what I thought I needed to do, and then that has provided energy. But I thank you also for just recognizing it. It's kind of like caregiving. If you're a caregiver, you think you're the one that has that burden and it's so hard. And then you reach out to other people and you're like, oh, they have it hard too. Okay, this is normal. This is to be expected. And not striving, but putting effort into change. That's normal, right? For me, for us, that's so I'm surrounded by this experience of normal.
When Christy said fighting for humanity, I mean, I think that really resonated. And I think it comes back to this idea of what you're seeing, that work of care that requires showing up, requires empathy, requires compassion, is generally the most underpaid, undervalued work. We see that in childcare workers, we see that in nursing homes, we see that in frontline healthcare. And so it's not even unique to coaches in that regard. Now, I think the difference is coaching, you know, we all have significant certifications, degrees, things that we've worked to. The challenge with coaching is it's still, as a new profession, very much undefined. So when you are, you know, a licensed nurse, there's a certain amount of rigor and process that you can go through, versus some of these larger companies are calling people coaches, not after months of training and internships like we've had, but just after like a 6-hour course, and then all of a sudden they're charging people for coaching. But again, that's because it's not about the client or the outcome, it's about their product and their profit. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do is really change what the metric is, right? We're saying the metric needs to be, can each person's individual success, not, you know, the extraction of profits that we then send somewhere far away.
I think it also is that we're focused on some of the data that can't necessarily be measured. You can measure weight loss, you can measure lowering blood pressure. There's definitely things that can be measured. And when we're talking about having an experiment of not writing out a list for a month, how do you measure that? How do you measure the outcome of, how life is different after not doing that? And yet those are the things that make life different. Of course, lowering your blood pressure, reaching those measures are too as well. But the idea of valuing things that can't be measured is one, I think another one of our strengths and our beauties, because that will be some of the things that we focus on.
I said that so often in the company that we all met at. We do qualitative work within a quantitative system, and the dissonance there was so large.
Well, also, and just within coaching, it's like taking these micro steps. And I mean that very intentionally, because I think that if someone's trying to measure your success with coaching, they might consider something like not making a list or abandoning your responsibilities for a minute to increase happiness and joy and connection with your creativity and yourself. Probably isn't something that anyone in these typical systems wants to measure, because that's not what they care about. So how do we actually measure this collective shift in joy and happiness and connection to what we actually want? And that's so unique and individual. All the systems are trying to put everything into this box that the collective moves like measurably together in a direction that somebody somewhere wants it to go, versus like each of us having our own unique interests and joys and thoughts about things. How do you actually measure that? There's 8 billion people in the world, is that right? Like, everyone has a unique blueprint, so it's actually immeasurable. And that's what's beautiful about coaching, is that like something that's meaningful for you today, Anna, probably isn't the same thing for me. So in ways, coaching just is immeasurable. I think it's really about, am I helping you get what you want today? Am I helping you move the needle on what you want and how you want to live? And that may change moment to moment, day to day. It has for me. But ultimately it's about connecting to that unique blueprint, and who's actually measuring that. That's a measure between me and myself, and you and yourself. Anyway,
Right.
I don't know if that made sense, any of that, but
The idea that it
it
changes,
did in my head.
the idea that it changes is so important, right? Because you talked about like the creation of these programs and how we try to push everybody into these programs, and here's what you do every day. But not only is everybody different, everybody's days are different. Our priorities change. Things come into our lives, illnesses, job loss, relationships. And suddenly this thing that I thought, well, that was most important to me might completely shift. And now it's somewhere going in this direction. And what we have is the ability to shift with the client, because it's not about, okay, we're going to get everybody to do the same thing every day. That's not about what works. That's about efficiency.
Yeah, a few years ago, Bex, you shared the book Energy Leadership with me, and that was such a game changer, because I was kind of struggling with, if you make a big change or if you have to make a decision, how you lean into the cues and when to make that type of choice, or when to take action versus kind of just even think and process and brainstorm it. And that book allowed me to almost use feeling as just as important as thinking through things. And so, when you guys are talking about all these different roles and jobs, I think I've always been in, either teaching yoga and working as a nurse and working in physical therapy. Everything I've ever done it always came to a point where someone had to say, okay, the patients and the clients you're working with, are they benefiting? Is this successful? Show us a success story. And that was always hard for me, because I would be like, well, I don't really think I'm the one that judges that. Let's talk to the patient. Let's talk to the client. I can show you objective information. Here's what we worked on in physical therapy, or here's the tasks I got done in the memory care unit in the care center working with this client or this patient. But I really think it's so much more than that. That always took away from what I did on my shift or in a day. Like, yeah, I can show you exactly where I was. I logged in at my computer at 7:45. I was with patient A from 8 to 8:30. I have years of my life in that type of a format. But talk to my patients and my clients and what someone took away from a yoga class. And that is so much more when we can get that subjective feedback and information from someone. And that's even layered, because even like this conversation today, I know we've felt the same way with past coaching conversations that we've had, in the moment, something can feel so exciting and energizing, and it can bring us all of these thoughts. But then also, how does that affect you or impact you in a week? You're still maybe thinking about something. And how many, I mean, we've all had clients where maybe we stopped working with them for a while and then they reached out again in a year or 3 years and they were like, hey, I've still been thinking about what you said, or my life has been completely changed because you showed me that thinking about this in a whole new way, I can apply that now to so many other areas of my life. So, getting a score saying this is how you did today with this client, or this is, where you spent your time today, or this is how many emails you responded to. That's important for some people to show, I think, that you're doing your work and you're going to work, but also aligning with that energy, knowing when, like for me, knowing when to step out of nursing because that kind of system no longer helped me to grow as a human. Then I was drawn to physical therapy and I learned so much from that. But then when I felt really limited by systems with different types of things, time frames, efficiency, productivity, I felt that inside me. And that's when I knew, like, energy wise, this isn't right. I can't fight this anymore. I can't fight this big of a system. I was young and there was a lot of things going on in my life. So then I was, pulled, drawn towards teaching restorative yoga. And so I think that energy topic is so important, at least it is for me when it comes to finding ways to know when to switch, because people feel that too, right? We're going to always be around people that feel the same, whether it's a frustration and we're going to use that to change and do something good, or we're so burnt out, can't do this anymore. Give me a year, I'll check back in with you. So there's something to energy management for me, and maybe for all of us, that helps us to decide where we're going to be led to next when it's time to say, no, no, this is not good for me anymore. I have other things I need to do. But it's been so helpful for me in noticing, even looking back in trends in my own personal life of where I was drawn to. There's so many correlations between, like, this group right here. We're here for a reason. We're having this conversation for a reason. And that matters.
There's so much I want to respond to there, but I'm going to stick with two things because my ADD will start, one is that idea of us knowing what we need, right? And how perfectly that aligns with how we're coaching. Because whereas so many things out there are like, go outside of yourself and purchase this project or this product, whatever. Go outside of yourself, purchase this product, purchase this program. But what we know through working truly with thousands of people over the years is, like, it's all here. And it's about getting through all of the messages that are out there that are telling you it's not there, telling you that you need to look elsewhere than inside yourself for the answer. And that to me is one of my, like, just the best privileges of the coaching work, is like helping people. Like, sometimes it's helpful to start with a construct, right? Because there's so many messages and it's so overwhelming. But I feel like over time, what then we would do is, like, remove that scaffolding, and then people would be like, oh, I know what I need to do for my body, or I know what I need to eat. I don't need to use this external framework anymore because I've reconnected and returned to what I know about what works for me. And and now I already forgot what the second thing was, so we'll just roll.
I relate to this so much, Bex, because I really appreciate active listening. And so I lose a lot of, like, Lisa, as you were talking, there were so many things that were like, it was sparking energy in me, but same as you, Bex, I probably can't remember it all. It's curious too, because in coaching, we're not bypassing any of it. And our culture, it's wild how our societal norms, someone said that earlier, like the norms of things, and we're identifying with the norms of things, but it's wild how the norms of our society shape how we actually do respond to ourselves, and whether we're listening to what we want to be center stage. And part of coaching is leading through the fire. Sometimes a coaching conversation doesn't go in a way of, like, someone would walk away from that and be like, yeah, that felt really great to me in that moment. That actually felt really hard. That actually felt like something I didn't want to touch on. Holy cow, the sun is, like, blinding me right now. This must be important. Anyway, but like, I think that that's part of coaching too. Like some of my most pivotal conversations in coaching have been the ones that probably in the moment I would have felt like, yeah, no, that actually felt really awful and really, really hard. And it triggered me in a way that I'm taking a different look. So maybe my reflection on a coaching session 7 weeks down the road is going to be very different than it would have been in that moment. But that's not what people are trying to measure when we're putting coaching into these systems. What they're measuring is like, are they buying what we want them to buy? Are they happy all the time? Are they, versus like, are they connecting with the truest parts of themselves? Is it authentic? And that leads down a whole nother path, because most people who are driving what we're doing societally are driving our behaviors toward what benefits them, not what benefits us. So that's why they don't want you to show up authentically at work, for example, or with each other, because for goodness sakes, what if that leads to you doing something rogue and not going along with the norms, you know?
But something that got sparked in me from what you said early on, and Christy, was this idea of not even, and I think this goes to what Lisa was saying too, not even being sure of what it is that will be the outcome of coaching. I almost always ask, what was their takeaway from our time together? And I am constantly amazed at what it is that they'll say they take away with, because I'll have something in mind. Oh, this is probably what they got out of it. And they will have gotten something totally different, or a little tiny thing that I thought, something I thought was just a little tiny thing was the most important thing to them. And you can also tell the people that have put some thought into that question too. But the idea that we don't know what the outcome of our coaching conversations will be. We don't know as we're having them, and we don't know what the impact going forward will be for them. And so I think to keep that idea, and it's kind of magic what we do, and to be in awe of the magic that we are able to provide for others, and not try to manage it, not try to handle it. Oh, my husband's cooking jalapenos. It's can't talk. Anyway, I fall in love with this. Is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and I fall in love with it again and again and again, and then just the possibilities and the power of coaching. That's what gives me the energy to keep going, because it is there. It's undeniable, and just because you can't put it on a piece of paper or hold it doesn't mean people can't feel it and people aren't impacted by it.
You made me think of the thing that I forgot, which is not only are people impacted by it, but the ripple effect, right? The fact that you're not just supporting the person that you're coaching, they're reaching their goals, they're improving their self-awareness, their well-being ripples out to their families, it ripples out to their workplaces, it ripples out to their communities. I know for me in my journey, addressing trauma and things that were impeding my health made me a much better parent, a better spouse. It let me contribute more in my community than I was able to when I was kind of in a more frantic, traumatic, moment to moment way of living. And so when we come back to that quantitative idea, it's like it impacts so much beyond even the individual.
Mhm.
And when they can come and be present and be themselves and contribute their authentic selves to the world, that's why we've talked about this, making the world a better place, one healthier person at a time. Like it's not just a saying, it's a real thing that we are able to do in this role.
Right. And I don't think we can or should deny the fact that we're changed all along the way too, with every interaction, that it deepens something in us, or points out something in us, or triggers something in us, or that as a profession, not having to call ourselves experts just allows for that really fertile ground for growth on both sides. And it serves as a really excellent role model. I never have trouble telling people I learned something from either the conversation or what I learned, and the idea that it can be that natural and that organic, and that they have an impact on me too, because that's an empowering thing as well for people to know that they matter to somebody else.
I think you summarized coaching so well. It's the exchange of energy with somebody without manipulating anything. You're just holding space. You're mirroring and reflecting and helping them see themselves in their truest light. And this word authenticity keeps coming up because whatever is authentic in that moment, and you're honoring whatever's authentic to that person. And maybe that's actually the definition of health, is like being more true to who we are authentically. And how do you actually measure? That's actually not measurable. And it's not something that you can, you're actually manipulating the profession of coaching when you're using coaching to manipulate people. Coaching is opposite of that. Coaching is the space where you're helping people connect to the truest part of them. And that maybe is what health is. So anyway, I appreciate this conversation so much.
Thanks for joining us at Returning to Health, the place to engage in open dialogue about topics related to health and well-being. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where your subscription goes toward providing coaching scholarships for folks who would benefit from the extra support. Here's to reclaiming our humanity, one choice at a time.